MaXXXine. Your agent tells us you're quite a popular name in adult film and entertainment. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm curious, did you always want to be in that line of work?
I always wanted to be famous.
So, if you don't mind me asking, why come here and do this?
Well, I've always had a larger vision for myself. Realistically, porn can only take me so far. I'm gonna be 33 years old pretty soon, and in hardcore, women age like bread, not wine. I'm not where I want to be yet. I want the good life.
Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all of our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Sydney Thompson.
I'm Monica Height.
And I'm Chelsea Duh.
And this week, we're going back to the 1980s, but actually not really, because this was released 2 weeks ago. We are doing the hotly anticipated, probably final entry into the X
Probably.
trilogy.
The trilogy.
Probably question mark, because I've heard rumors, but we are doing the hotly anticipated MaXXXine. You have to do that. You have to pronounce it like that, because there's MaXXXine, because there's 3 X's in it, if you didn't know. And before we dive in, let me hit you with the IMDb log line, okay?
Knock it out of the way up front.
Oh, yeah. Just so we never have to think about it again. In 1980s Hollywood, adult film star and aspiring actress MaXXXine Minx finally gets her big break. But as a mysterious killer stalks the starlets of Hollywood, a trail of blood threatens to reveal her sinister past. That's pretty good. Pretty good. And I also just want to say that something happened where an ad popped up and it made the words move all around and I didn't even stutter. I stuttered before that when there was nothing stopping me from reading normally.
It did sound kind of like you put a little extra X in the word actress, but I would argue that that's thematic to the movie.
Thank you so much. It's my accent coming through. I thought I joined the theme of the film where everybody has an accent.
Everybody has an accent. Should we all do different accents this whole episode, actually?
I'm not that good at
accents. I'll do a Halsey.
Oh god, her accent was so bad.
Hollywood.
Yeah. Okay, here's the thing. Let's start it off with the real feelings here. I'm to be honest. I watched this movie a week and a half ago, whatever. I don't know when that was. I watched it with Chelsea. The Sunday after it came out. And I was severely underwhelmed. And I was like not super down. And I had a lot of criticisms. And I was like, okay, but now I know what the movie is. And I feel like if I watch it again, I will have a better time because my expectations are different. And that's exactly what happened. I actually liked it a lot better this time around. I saw it earlier today, literally like 2 hours ago. And I didn't do a 180 on it. I would say not a 180. There are still criticisms that we have, but I think I definitely liked this a lot more this time because this movie is the third in the trilogy. And much like Scream 3, people are a little divided on it. Okay.
Sure.
I don't know. I had a good time with this one, actually.
Okay.
Good.
Tell us about your theater experience.
There was only like 7 people in the theater because I too also saw it like 2 hours ago for the first time. But like I'd seen like not a lot. I hadn't seen any like spoilers and stuff, but I saw people being like, no, blah, blah, blah. I saw the Scream 3 comparison. And so I was just like, okay, this movie's going to be camp. Right? Like that's kind of like what I went into it as. And I don't know if it's just because I love 80s horror so much and I love an 80s aesthetic that this movie to me gave me literally everything that I want. I need a goose container full of cocaine immediately.
Oh my God.
I need it immediately. I looked over to Taylor and I go, that's what I want for my birthday. And he goes, a ceramic goose full of cocaine. And I said, yes. And he goes, why am I not surprised?
Honestly,
I want
so much cocaine in there.
Yes,
So much cocaine in
literally.
there. Crazy 80s amounts of cocaine in there.
yes. And then she had this glorious little Coke spoon that was a sexy, sexy lady. Iconic.
It was incredibly iconic.
I just
Yeah, no-
felt a kindred spirit to said sexy lady Coke spoon. Also, I need her car.
Yeah, her
Oh,
car is great.
I
That
also
was-
looked over to Taylor and I go, I need this car. I need this car immediately.
you do need this car.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
he's gonna have to get super rich by October.
He didn't give me a birthday present last year because we had
So
just
he's gonna
started
have to
dating.
make up
So
for
he
it.
has to
And
make
I
up
guess
for
he
it.
should spend, I don't know, $20,000 minimum.
Well, and he has to build me a little guillotine as well. So he needs
Oh
to
my
get
God.
busy.
He's
lot
gotta get
to
started
do.
now.
Cindy
Yeah,
Palooza.
honestly.
I want a. Honestly, I need a gift every week for Cindy Palooza. So that's 3 of the gifts right there. Problem
Okay,
solved.
so actually you're giving him a lot of good tips.
Yeah.
No, I mean, totally. Camp is the word for it. It's definitely a lot more camp than I was expecting. I think one of the classic mistakes that I made was that I watched Pearl the day before. Actually, not even all of it. But I hadn't rewatched X. So I was like expecting a more high energy performance from Mia Goth because I kind of conflated Pearl and MaXXXine's characters because there's a
Sure.
myriad of reasons why you might.
Yeah.
Because Pearl is fucking screaming at the top of her lungs, banshee yelling like I need like all this shit, you know what I mean? And she's actually like unhinged in probably a clinical regard, that character. But Maxine isn't the same person. Obviously there's parallels in their lives, and that's why there was that weird draw between them in X, and it's why Maxine is haunted by Pearl in this movie, but they're not the same bitch at all. And so I think I was expecting more like insanity from Mia Goth, but she, that's Maxine's character. She is very like proud of herself and she's very confident, but she's also calculated, and she also has had tons of trauma for years and years coming from her family background and stuff like that too. So that was one of my big things that I was annoyed about watching it the first time. I was like, I feel like Mia Goth didn't like say enough. She didn't give enough and blah, 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 blah. But watching it the second time, I was perfectly happy with her performance.
And she has her standout moments. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like right after we watched it the first time, you were like, she didn't say anything the whole movie, basically. But like, she has these big moments of action where, like, with the guy in the alleyway and with Kevin Bacon in the car, where it's like, she does have her moments of being like, I'm not taking any shit and I'm being proactive. And, oh, you want to fuck with me? I'm going to fuck with you 12 times harder.
Totally. I also think for me, and then I'll be done with my emotional state, but I think when I watched it on Sunday, I was in a weird mood. When we watched it together. Cause like I was in a fucking great mood today. And I also went into it and I was like, I'm gonna like it this time. And that's the power of positive thinking, bitch. Manifest that shit. Also, like, I was wanting it to be like X, but that's the thing with this movie. Like, yes, it is an 80s slasher for sure, Sid, like you were saying, but also this is more inspired by like giallo and like 80s noir films than it is necessarily like an 80s slasher. Like, obviously not like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, but that's the first one that popped into my head, and so I'm sorry, and that's what we're left with. But like it's totally different because it's more like one of those like slinky cop drama kind of things where she's the detective from the 80s. Not exactly, but like that's some of the energy I got from the movie this time around. And I was
Well, like
oh,
the
that's what
black
he was
leather
doing.
gloves and the hands being the only thing you see of him except for the hat. Like, that's 100% giallo.
It's directly from this one movie too. What is it? The bird with the crystal plumage, Dario Argento's film.
I think we
That's
talked
like
about that when we did
almost
Suspiria.
yeah, that's almost exactly the outfit that the killer in that movie wears. What he's wearing, the trench coat and the black gloves and the hat outline and all of that shit.
Well, I also feel like, and they showed this in the movie when they were like, we don't know what the Night Stalker looks like yet. But like, that's the very classic, like, mysterious, dangerous man. He's got a trench coat and a hat pulled down so you can't see his eyes. Like, that's the
There could be anything under
stereotypical
there.
stranger danger visual.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I was really annoyed with the first time around was all of these like high intensity character performances that just seemed really overblown to me. But that goes into the camp thing. Like, I just wasn't expecting it to be camp in that way. And then this time around, because I was prepared for it, I loved Halsey.
I didn't like the accent. It felt like a little fake and forced, but
It's
I
like-
get it though.
It's so
Keep
hard
going.
to even know what word she's saying when she says dead girls in Hollywood. Because she says it almost like with the TH. And for a zillion times watching the trailer, I thought she was saying bad girls in Hollywood. Like all the
Oh, I
other bad
remember
girls in
thinking that too.
Hollywood also think they can handle themselves, which makes sense using context clues to figure out what that word is. But like, I don't know, everybody was doing so much accent work in this movie that it's like, you know what? Ty West clearly came on the scene and he said, who wants to do an accent? Everybody raised their hands. He said, go crazy, have fun.
Well, also, okay, two things. One, for me, it worked this time because I was like, 90% of these people
Or transplants.
are all transplants. Yes, are all transplants trying to become stars in Hollywood. Like, one of Ty West's big thing is that Hollywood is a character in this movie. I always think it's a little bit annoying when people say that kind of shit, but also it's true. A place can be a character in a movie, and that obviously is like not. I would say this is a good 10% of the movie is just zooming in on the word Hollywood. I'm not like literally.
Sunset
There are
Boulevard.
shots, and it's just the Hollywood sign. Oh, again and again,
Here's
the
the Vista
road
Theater.
sign that says Hollywood. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, okay,
it's a lot of the like studio backlots.
yes,
A lot of the
which I-
Bates Motel house.
I love
did
that
love
though.
that, and I feel like that. Like, I read this whole great Screen Rant thing of all the Easter eggs because I was like, there's so many movie references in here. I know that. But I haven't seen everything from the 80s, so it was
What?
super helpful. Yeah,
You haven't
no, I
seen
know.
everything from the 80s?
That's Sydney's job, not mine.
Wow.
I'm full core, remember?
Wow.
And
I thought you were a
haven't done that.
professional.
I know. I'm not a professional. I've never seen St. Elmo's Fire, but that was referenced like 15 times in the movie, in case you
That's
wanted
wild.
to know. It was
I also
on
haven't seen it.
it was on the marquee at one point when they were walking by.
And they had like a little thing and they go, and that's the song from St. Elmo's Fire.
Oh, yeah. But there's so many references in this to Hollywood, to other Hollywood things, and that is part of the whole mythos with this entire trilogy is how like film and media has affected all of these characters and made them aspire to greatness. So it makes sense that the movie would be affected itself. And I choose to believe that even though it wasn't on Screen Rant's list, that it being set in a backlot and it being a meta movie making movie was a reference to Scream 3. It was. It is.
Well, there's a lot of not references to Scream 3, but parallels with Scream 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Because like there's the being on the Hollywood set, the backlot, running around the sets, the movie set chase sequence. There's like the haunted by an apparition I have in my notes where Sydney has like her mom that she sees when she's at her house, and then also like Ghostface under the sheet being her dead mom or whatever.
Yes.
In
Oh,
the
yeah.
scene. And that's kind of like how Pearl is haunted by the Norma Bates at the Bates Motel, where it's like, and also obviously the vision she has of like old Pearl when she's getting the life cast and stuff like that. But like the old woman up in the house, and no one believes she's real. And is she real? And it's like, is she part of the prop? Blah blah blah. And then there's a final showdown at a Hollywood mansion, just like in Scream 3.
Yeah. There's a lot there. There's a lot there. So I think that's fun. Because Spooky Tuesday is a big fan of Scream 3. Much to the chagrin of one person who listened to our Scream 3 episode. But okay, another parallel to Scream 3. I was in a bad mood when I watched it's Scream 4 actually. When I watched Scream 4 and I hated it the first time. And then I watched it again when I was in a good mood and I loved it. So similar thing happening here.
It's exactly the same.
So many parallels. Whoa.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, let's dive in, I guess. How does this even open? Oh my God. The opening of this movie is slay beyond belief. Slay, they nailed the opening. I love the fucking
That little
studio-
girl had too many eyebrows.
Oh, not that opening. Sorry. I don't care about that part. But yeah, I agree. That little girl, the casting for young MaXXXine was weird because it didn't look
When they
anything
showed
like
the
other
younger
girl from
picture,
last movie.
yeah, when they showed the younger picture of MaXXXine Miller in her yearbook later on, which I think is a real picture of Mia Goth, I was like,
Yeah.
I see how they cast this girl who does kind of look like Mia Goth when she was younger, but she doesn't look enough like Mia Goth now for me to be impressed by this casting. I was mostly just like, okay, they found a little girl.
Also, it's very easy to lighten someone's eyebrows. I, an amateur, did it today so I could be MaXXXine from X. Like, it's super easy to do. You just put concealer on a fucking brush and you're
Holy.
done. So just make her eyebrows a little bit lighter and it would be a lot more believable. Like, you can't structurally might not match Mia Goth because she's got an interesting face, but at least delete her eyebrows so I
The
can
eyebrows are
believe
the
that it's
signature part of
genetic.
her look.
Yeah.
I mean, she could have done that as an adult and had regular people eyebrows as a child.
I like to think that she's like Matt
Are you
Smith.
implying she bleaches her eyebrows?
Yeah, like that's a thing that adults do, Monica.
No,
I guess that's true.
But in the picture from her being in high school, she
She also has the no eyebrows.
has no eyebrows.
And then at the end, when she's in her costume as the 50s lady, they have put more eyebrows back on her so that she has almost light but like normal looking eyebrows. So
I think she's a Matt Smith type where you just don't have any brows.
they just disappear.
He's got light
And she
light
works it. I'm
brows.
just saying, again, it's her trademark. So if you're showing me young MaXXXine, she should not have eyebrows.
Yeah.
She just shouldn't.
I feel like we kind of need to spoil the quote unquote twist. I don't know if you want to call it that, but I guess it is. Early because I'd like to discuss it throughout the movie because it like watching it a second time, I was like, oh God.
Wait, just because
so-
I know the answer for Monica though, Sydney, when did you
spoiler alert, we're saying the twist. Okay, keep going.
I just want to know when Sydney figured out what the twist was.
I kind of figured it out, I think like a little halfway
Okay.
beforehand. I don't know, it was kind of obvious with the opening credit and bringing the dad back.
Yeah. One of my friends didn't see the twist coming until the reveal. And I would have loved to have had that experience. But as soon as they showed the opener, I went, oh, I guess that is the big hanging thread and why you would want a sequel to resolve that storyline.
100%. And I was just like going through it once it's clear she's being stalked or whatever. I was just like, who the fuck is left? Unless there's no one else that exists in the movie universe of X at all that it could be, unless it's like the fucking cops from there. But the cops wouldn't have a private eye. It wouldn't be that at all. Everyone else that we ever met is dead from that movie and that was ever referenced is dead. It can't be Pearl resurrected. That'd be fucking stupid unless they want
I
to make
did
it a
for one
zombie
second
movie.
think, could she have survived? And then I was like, no.
No, she ran over her head with a
She
car.
ran over her head. Yeah.
She's not
Yeah.
surviving that, unfortunately.
Because for a second I was
Right.
like, did she
Her
just
head went
get shot? I don't remember. No.
No.
Her head got fully crushed.
That's the great thing about MaXXXine. She knows the rules. You got to do a headshot if you want to make it stick. You know what I mean?
Those are the rules.
Those are the rules. So yeah, that's for me. I was just like, it has to be the dad. There's literally no other option.
Well,
and
also
They were really
bringing
trying to throw
in-
you off with the Night Stalker thing by being like, it could be a random creepy crawly in the night. And like, I think they could make a compelling stranger stalker movie. Obviously the strangers exists and has become a whole franchise. Again, I kind of hate that because I want it to be narratively satisfying instead of that person we've never seen before. That's the answer. But she is famous. They do have so many people throughout the movie go, MaXXXine, I love your work. So like I think from a plot reasoning and logic standpoint, they could have done something like that, but it would have been, at least for me, a letdown if it wasn't like referencing back to something that we're already familiar with or in conversation with, especially as a third film in a trilogy.
I
Totally.
like the dad being the bad guy. Like, it makes sense because like the satanic panic of the 80s was like such a huge deal, and he's like a Southern evangelical, but also,
well, I have thoughts about that actually.
We get to see where MaXXXine kind of gets her flair for the dramatics from.
Well, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I read all these great interviews with Ty West, and one thing that he mentioned, he was like, well, she already had her childhood start in stardom because a televangelist is the same thing as being an actor. It's just a different material. You know what I mean? That if you don't think that's a performance, then you just haven't seen one. So she was already on stage from a young age. That's where she got it from her daddy. So
yeah, I mean, I think that we already got a lot of that connection a little less explicitly in X, where they reveal at the end of the movie on the TV where he's like, my missing daughter MaXXXine or whatever, and he has, or I don't actually remember whatever it is. I haven't watched that movie in a long time.
They said
but
she
he
was
also
stolen
does
by the devil and Hollywood and that sort of thing. Like almost exactly what is referenced.
Yeah, and he does the I will not accept a life I don't deserve, or whatever the line is precisely. Sorry to misquote it when that's said 1,000 times.
I will not accept the life I do not deserve. I think that's it.
Right. And so like you see that is the culture that she was raised in X. You kind of have to put the pieces together in retrospect because that's like the very end of the movie. But it's very easy to see like where that absolute revolt comes from and the full rebellion, and it's like, I'm going to do the exact opposite. And I can imagine coming from like a super I'll say it, puritanical culture, in light of the Puritan and the Puritan too. I think it's very interesting that she like fully shifts into doing porn, but I would also argue that I don't know that her dad is super evangelical. I think he might also just be a huge grifter, and this is the grift that he's chosen. I don't know how sincere he is, because there's that line at the end where he's like, play along, MaXXXine. I think it's very possible that this is just his grift, and she knows that, and that's part of why she's rebelling so hard against it, because she knows she's been held to these crazy standards that she has to conform to in public to protect his grift, and also that he's like a huge lying, faking phony.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, have you seen Righteous Gemstones? You don't have had to have seen that, but that's a big criticism of televangelists in general. They're just big cash cows who prey on the fear of religious folks. And that's what that is. They're capitalizing literally off of people's religious beliefs. So it's a scam in my opinion. Sorry if I'm offending anyone of our listeners, but I find those things to be a scam by nature. They like prey on people's fear. They ask for donations, all of this stuff, and like it funds some stuff for the church, but it also goes into the pocket of the pastor.
Oh, Joel
itself.
Osteen having a $bazillion lifestyle. Yeah.
100%. I mean, if you haven't seen Righteous Gemstones as a show, it is really fucking funny. And it's got Horror King, Danny McBride. I remembered his name on time this time. Wow. Because he wrote the last Halloween trilogy. We're not going to get into it.
He wrote that?
Yeah, he wrote it with another person. He wrote, yeah.
Fascinating.
That's what.
And I don't know about y'all. I had a good time with the last Halloween trilogy. So
Have
I
only seen the
refuse to
original
watch the
Halloween
last
and Season
one.
of the Witch.
I loved the first one. I watched the second one. It made me want to kill everyone. But I did have COVID when I watched it and was locked up, and it was pretty far into a movie marathon, so that could have been part of it. And then I refused wholesale to see the third one because of this experience I had on the second one.
liked all of them. So maybe I'm the weird one, but I had a good
No.
time.
Some people like them. I just
I didn't
found
know
it
he
to
was
be
such a Scream
depressing.
king.
Yeah,
Look at his IMDb now.
I was surprised.
I'm always
too
just
when
like,
they
that's the
came out.
guy who is in This Is the End, and I hate that movie. So
No, he's so.
I knew him
he
from other things
is
before then, but
hilarious, and he writes a lot of these. I think he is involved with the writing for Righteous Gemstones. I think it's like from
yeah,
his
he's
brain.
the creator.
Yeah, and he also did what's the one about the trailer park in Canada? That show's
Eastbound and
fucking
Down.
hilarious. Thank you. Yeah. That show's fucking hilarious too. So he's like, I think it's really cool that he's got such a range. Yeah, seriously, very cool. But yeah, I think that 100% the father is a scam artist for sure, and he's found his way to be famous, and it happens to come with this holier than thou pride of like being right with God or whatever. And so yeah,
Well,
of course it makes sense that she rebels in the exact way that she does, and also that's an industry that has a little bit lower barrier to entry than like being a star in Hollywood, you know what I mean? Especially if she's
Yeah.
not in LA yet.
Well, but also like, again, that's what she was doing in X. You know what I mean? Like Giancarlo Esposito's character in this movie says, like, I found you on the street and I made you a star, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, he does not know until she tells him. He's like, we've been working together 2 years. You never mentioned this. He does not know about her first film back in Texas because she is desperately trying to make sure nobody ever finds out about that. But
Yeah.
she was interested in that from the beginning. And I think she's distancing herself from her dad. Obviously, she's not using her real last name. She does not want to be connected to that. She doesn't want people to know about that. But I also think in many ways, it's like there is a certain appeal in it for her, knowing that if she was ever connected, it would be like terrible for her dad's image. Like you can't even control your own daughter kind of thing. Even though like he's like,
rebellion.
I can work with this. Actually, Satan stole my daughter. I've got an in here. Like that's part of why I don't think he is. We've talked about how it's a scam. I don't even think it was one of those things where it was like he was genuinely religious and then realized he could profit off of this. I think he went, where's a good market? Let me hop in.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you there for sure. I'm with you there.
He's also so camp. He is the campus part of this movie.
That is the gayest pastor I've ever seen. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
the gayest pastor in the world. That's saying something. There's a lot of gay pastors out there. That's the gayest televangelist I've ever seen in my life. How about that? But yeah, okay, yeah. We spoiled the ending at the beginning of the episode because one of my takeaways watching it this time was just like knowing who it was and watching the weird things that he does. I was like, ugh! But we'll get there. We talked about the opening scene with the flashback, but what I really want to talk about is her opening monologue and her audition. I thought that was so awesome. And honestly, it was a really great performance. Something that I thought was fun throughout the whole movie was how Puritan 2, this movie she gets cast in, like exactly is mimicking her life and what's happening to Leon and different characters, other characters in the film. thought it's like a little heavy-handed, but also I liked that about it. I think it
Yeah.
was like a fun thing to go all in on.
I think it made sense too. And like Elizabeth Bender says, she wants her movies to be art. She needs them to have something to say. So I thought it was like an interesting way to comment on the themes of the movie and why this is still happening to Maxine. And the monologue, I wish I could have written it down word for word. There were so many times
So
watching
good.
the movie a second time where I was like, I wish I could be taking notes right now, but I didn't bring a notebook, and I am not going to be on my phone in the theater because I'm so polite to the people around me, actually. I will open 5 packets of fruit snacks that I brought from home, and so I'll do little crinkly crinkly the whole time. Apologies, but
You can't have the
um
crinkly
Eating me fruit
crinkly.
snacks over the
I have to
weekend.
have little snack in movie theater. Okay, look, Monica, I bought a Costco size box. It comes with
No.
90 pouches.
I was
So
thanking you for feeding them to me while we were
I
watching
just
movies
gobbled
over the weekend.
3 while we were doing our agenda items before we started recording. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could have written down that whole thing word for word. The part that I remember is that she's paying for the sin of living, which is, I think, just like Maxine's whole thing. Is she just wants to be herself, aka not doing a grift. She just wants to have the life that she thinks she deserves. She's born and bred to be a star. She just wants to do it her way, her life, her personality, her passions. And it's also so much about like her survivor's guilt from X. And so it's like the sin of living and like surviving that event and continuing on is also what she has to pay for.
Yeah.
And I just think it was so interesting. And then when Elizabeth Debicki, actually, I don't, is her name Elizabeth in the movie? I don't remember. But
It
Elizabeth
is.
Debicki,
I think
so
so.
stunning, gorgeous, beautiful. Again,
Oh
one of
my
the most gorgeous
gosh.
women in the world.
Mhm.
So elegant. Loved her. I don't know if that's her real accent. She is British. But I don't know if she did like a slightly different one. I'm no accentologist. But
I'm no accentologist.
I'm not. But when she is like, she's a killer, but she's not a murderer. Like all that stuff that she was saying is also Maxine.
All about Maxine. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
thought it was
so
cool.
I
She's
just
the
thought it was
perfect
great.
person for the role. She really is.
Mhm. She came
I-
in, she told them. We saw later that she was like, y'all should cast me in this movie. So like,
That was
loved it.
so funny. I just love also to just the juxtaposition of her doing this like honestly great monologue. Maxine, I'm talking about now, doing
Mhm.
this killer monologue, and then they're like, "That was great. Can you show us your
Where's your-
tits?"
And she's like,
And she's like, yeah, sure, of course.
So fun.
and then they didn't want to cast her because she was in porn. You asked to see her tits. Hello.
Oh.
So good.
People
Don't
have
you want
already
somebody
seen the tits, so they're
comfortable?
like, it's not even going to be exciting. Well, they're wrong. They're so
These tits are famous.
yeah.
People are in love with these tits. Okay. People
Also,
are searching out these tits at the adult video store.
I think we mentioned already how amazing her car is, but with the Maxine license plate is also a great reference to Angeline the Billboard Queen, and there's literally an
Yes.
Angeline the Billboard Queen billboard in this movie. And if you don't know who Angeline is, she is an incredible LA icon. Look her up, Angeline the Billboard Queen. A big bosomed woman who knows how to market herself. And she drives around LA to this day in a pink convertible that says Angeline as her vanity plate.
Monica and
Slayest
I
bitch in
one
town.
time won like a ride with Angeline in her car.
But we were too scared to set it up because we're like, what are we gonna talk to her about? I was like, what's gonna happen? Like, what's gonna happen?
And it was like we
Not
couldn't
sure
go
about being
together.
a female entrepreneur.
It's the biggest regret of my life. And that store that we won it from doesn't exist anymore. But I still
know.
have the screenshot of the phone number that they said to set it up. So, Sid.
Just give Angeline a call. Hey girl,
Hey,
where you
girl,
up
pick
to?
me up.
We won this years ago. Are you still down?
I saw her on the freeway literally a month and a half ago.
I used
'cause
to
you
see
can't
her
miss her.
all the time. Like she scoots around in her little pink Corvette.
Yeah, she's doing the thing. She's incredible. But yeah, I mean, I do love all of the little nuances here. Ty West, as we know, really knows how to put his whole pussy into a recreation of a time. And I do love that it was this noir type thing. I think that was a fun change of pace. I'm glad that each movie is so different, you know, because like 70s slasher, that's what X was, slayed it so great. I just think with this movie, it didn't like play out as artfully as X did, you know? And Pearl was just a fun time romp of insanity. So, you know, I still
Well,
think that X is my favorite and it goes down from there. But I just feel like there's more finesse in X, you know what I mean, with the way that the
yeah.
whole thing came about. And obviously it's a faster paced movie because it is supposed to be a slasher in the 70s style, and those are faster paced movies, and a noir film is meandering. That is thematic, but it did make it a little bit harder to watch at times because I
And
wish
it
there
was
was more
also just
action.
like there was a group dynamic in X, and so you cared more about the other
Yes.
characters.
The ensemble
And these
cast.
characters, they're there for 1 second. They say one line, other than Moses Sumney. That's it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're barely, especially the two girls in the beginning, Halsey and I'm so
Her
sorry.
name
I don't. Their names
her
are like
name
Timmy
is
and
Amber.
Tamber or
Amber.
something like that.
Amber James, and her real name is Chloe Farnworth.
Yeah.
Amber
Those two
James.
girls, Amber James, you see her for 1 second getting screwed in the porn set, and then she goes, "It shouldn't be that hard to fuck me anyway. I'm going to a Hollywood party. I'm going to meet a rich doctor, get plastic surgery for free." And then she's dead. You know what I mean? Like, we
She
don't
shows her
get,
titties and then she dies. And you don't even
yeah.
see her
Classic.
die, you know? I think
And
that
like,
that was really frustrating, but I will say I'm glad that scene happened at all because that strip club is the ultimate strip club. Was it the landing strip?
the
That was the
landing
funniest
strip.
thing I've ever seen. That like catwalk with the stripper pole at the end of it, like being the fucking what's it called? Oh my god, landing strip. Yeah, but the other word for it,
Runway?
airplane runway. Thank you so much. My aphasia popping off. But yeah, you're totally right, Chelsea. Like they had an incredible ensemble cast for X, and you cared about every single one of them because one of them was Brittany Snow, and the other one was Kid Cudi, and the other one was Jenna Ortega, and the other people who I don't know their names off the top
And
of
then
my
there was
head
RJ
also
who
were
cried in
great.
the shower.
Yeah. So it just was a different type of movie, but it, you know, it's harder when you're like, okay, these people are being killed and I don't care. It doesn't even seem like MaXXXine cares that much.
They don't even really get their own like deaths. Like, we do get the moment where we see Halsey's character blindfolded and tied up and dragged out of the room, but like we don't see either of those characters like in their own lives or whatever. We only see them as accessories to MaXXXine, and then they're dead so that MaXXXine can have feelings about it, so it can send a message to MaXXXine, which, like, you know, as it turns out, is the point of killing them for the most part. He's obviously targeting important people in her life and like isolating her from her support system and anybody that she could turn to,
Yeah.
so that he can be like, come back with me and these terrible people that you're associating with, don't you see what's happening to them? But I don't know. I think if we were meant to be affected by that, we could have had a little more of it, because Moses Sumney was the only one we care about because they get to cuddle, which is very sweet and I do love.
Yeah. I was upset when he died. I was like, no.
Yeah.
He was so cute.
Yeah. I went to college with Moses, so I was really excited to see him fucking slay the Boots house down in this. He was so good. He was so cute. I loved his character. And I forgot until now to look up the whole Poindexter glasses thing. I'm doing it now. Talk about something else and then I'll come back.
Okay, I will say MaXXXine does a thing where she's like, yeah, I'm 33 years old and like you age like bread and not wine in my industry. And as
in
a 33,
hardcore.
right? And as a 33-year-old, I was like, ooh, I'm not doing hardcore, but like, you know.
You're not doing hardcore, and they didn't have accessible Botox back then the way that they do now.
And nobody used SPF, quite frankly.
Yeah, everybody was out there baking in the sun, sucking down cigarettes, creating wrinkles for themselves like crazy. You know what I mean? So
But still, I was just like, ooh,
yeah,
a gut
Yeah,
punch.
I can understand
I
that.
thought about that when that part happened. I was like, Sydney's not gonna like it.
Like,
I-
oh, especially like, girl, 33 is such a specific age.
And also, like,
Okay.
Mia Goth isn't 33 yet. You know what I mean? She's only 30 herself. So, like, she looks beautiful. And also, we're used to seeing her playing not young characters necessarily, but like younger characters for the most part. And so she's like, I'm 33 and we age terribly in my industry. And it's like, but you're beautiful and glowing and gorgeous. What do you mean?
Exactly. But
I
in
I feel
porn
like
at
she's
33,
also
you've gone from like teenage blah 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 to
now you're playing
MILF
the MILF. Yeah.
immediately.
And she is a
No,
mother in real
seriously.
life. So, I mean, sure. But yeah, I can say, I think maybe her point is more like I'm looking to pivot before it's too late. Then it's already too late for me. I think she's at the top of her game. Well, that's arguable, I guess, porn wise. Because, okay, they're like, we make so much more money in fuck flicks than in regular movies, unless you're at the top of the billing. And she does have beautiful, wonderful car, and she does live alone in Hollywood, and it's not a terrible apartment.
I want to
But
know
she
what part of
also,
town her apartment is in. Is it Hollywood? Like, it
That's
seems
Hollywood proper. Yeah.
close.
yeah. But it's like I'm so curious about her finances. Because she's working crazy schedule, you know, she's going to show world at night. She's not I don't think she works at the landing strip. I think you just have to go through the landing strip to get to the porn studio in the back in the airplane hangar. Um, but she's going from working porn in the morning to working the live show in the evening, and she's
Yeah.
staying busy.
She's booked and busy.
she's
She's focused. And she's doing auditions all the time. She
That's true.
auditioned for that music video. She didn't get it because they're giving her that
The
catch
Lizzie Borden
22.
music video.
Hilarious. But like, she's got to have enough money to drive the car of my dreams,
That's true.
which a Mercedes in the 80s.
Well,
And
Halsey was saying that fuck flicks pay a lot better than
Yeah.
straight films. I loved those terms. But you know,
Well,
once you
that's
hit
why
the
I
big
was
time-
like, does she need to be working at Show World at all? I guess that was there to like speak to her work ethic more than anything else. But it made her feel like she needs to hustle to make rent. While I'm also being given the impression that she's a very successful porn actress who makes good money on fuck flicks. So it's like just
Yeah.
narratively.
I don't feel like that totally checks out. I think they wanted her to just to be in that interesting setting of show world or whatever that was, because I hadn't seen that type of establishment before, and aesthetically
cool.
it was really cool. It was just like it for a giallo type thing like that, to have a masked man behind the one-sided glass, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I thought that was a really cool shot. My cat is breaking down the door once again. Okay,
Also,
I have
maybe good money for
going.
porn in the 80s. Maybe that's not good money for being a very famous porn star these days. You know what I mean? They didn't have OnlyFans, etc. back then for you to be building your
Yeah.
own empire. So I don't know what good money means other than she can buy herself a convertible, I guess.
Well, the porn industry like exploded in the 80s too. Like, it became like it was like there in the 70s, but like it went like huge in the 80s. And
I
also
think
too, like,
distribution was easier for
Yeah.
VHSs and stuff like that, like the one that Leon works at.
exactly. And also too, like, you're a decade into like Roe v. Wade being passed, and so there was a lot more feminists and things like that. And there was a lot of like historical debates about porn, which we do see in this movie where they were like picketing the studios. Like, that actually happened.
Porn
Yeah.
is porn.
Yes, that was
No,
like
yeah.
a huge thing because there
Yeah.
was a lot of tits in horror.
Yeah. Okay. So, something that Chelsea and I talked about with Danny when we saw this movie a couple weeks ago was the styling for Leon / Moses Sumney's character in this movie. He's got the cast on his arm. He's got the nerd glasses with the tape, and then he's wearing cool shirts. He's wearing Judas Priest shirt, whatever. That's just cool. He's a cool guy. So my first thing that I thought of with this was Richie Tozier. I don't know if that's how you say his last name, from It. But I was looking it up. The movie where we covered it on the pod. The movie where he is played by Seth Green came out in 1990, so that's after the 80s, but the book came out in 86. So that's still after 85. But I was reading some interviews with Ty West, and he was saying that, like, look, not everything is exactly from 1985. There's like a fusion of other things in the 80s as well. And he was also working really hard to make it look like a lived in 80s experience. It's not like everybody wearing, like, this is like a quote from him almost, like, not everyone's going to be wearing like leg warmers and whatever you think the stereotype of 80s is. So he wasn't hard and fast on that. So I feel like it could still be a reference to Richie, because Richie is the cutie nerd boy who's got the arm cast, and the arm cast says, someone writes loser on it instead of signing
they switch it
it
to lovers.
cross out the S and change it to lover.
Gay.
I love his character. So that's what it really looked like to me, like with the glasses and that. Like, if Stephen King was a tastemaker in the 80s, okay? Like, I don't think that he would have stolen something else from another form of media. So I feel like it has to be a reference to that. But I cannot find the origin of nerd glasses with the tape. I tried looking it up. My search terms are not good enough. I'm getting nothing. So if you can figure it out, let me know. Write it in the comments. But it was like a really funny, interesting styling. I think Danny said, like, he's got like the Urkel glasses on. Like, what the fuck is that? And I just think it has to be Richie. And if it is, I loved that. And also I was like, okay, they're giving him this fucking cast that has to be plot relevant. And yeah, they did a good job with making it part of his kill. Okay, they did.
They did.
Oh, okay, we were talking about the girlies too, Halsey and whatever their
Amber.
fucking names are, whatever. I feel like that was also
Tabby.
a missed opportunity for this movie to be gorier. I liked that they switched perspective. I actually did this time liked the switch perspective thing where, like, throughout the film they cut to this like VHS cut of what you're seeing, and someone actually has a camera. It's like a little bit of a found footage intersection into the shots, and I liked that. But I think it really hampered the death scene for Halsey, and they could have had that still and showed us more. Like, I don't know. It was just, it felt like a waste, and you didn't even get to see Amber die. I don't know. It just, I felt
that was
a little
my
bloodless to me.
That was my big criticism, was like, in my rankings of the movies, like, X would be 1, MaXXXine would be 2, and then Pearl. Like, Pearl didn't do really anything for me, but like MaXXXine could have been number 1 for me if it had more active gore like X did.
It did have super active gore, but it was so constrained to just a few moments. Like, seeing the cock and balls get absolutely smashed was gore.
That scene. I literally looked at Taylor and I go, I need to start carrying my gun more.
Also, I'm so mad because for my birthday party this year, I painted a gun gold because I was doing a girl with the golden gun thing, and it was my golden birthday. Can't fucking find it. Cannot find it. So mad. Was gonna have it for this episode. We would have gotten banned on all of TikTok though, so probably for the best.
Yeah, I hate when they suppress my good cosplay and prop work, but it's fine.
How could they do that to us?
I know, it's rude.
How could they? And during Pride Month.
There was an interesting reference though in that Buster scene that I totally went over my head. 100% went over my head, but I feel like it'd be a good thing to explain to listeners because it makes it a little less cheesy and more cheesy all at the same time. the man who was stalking her was not a mime like I thought. I thought it was another mime reference we were just saying. Okay, actually I'm making a future reference. In a future episode we reference a mime, and then also we referenced a mime in the interview with the vampire episode, and so
I will
mimes
say
are
real quick,
top of mind. Yeah.
there is also a Lord's Prayer through line between this week and next week. So
Oh
the
fuck.
Lord's Prayer is recited in both films.
Whoa. So we're giving you a little future.
Can you
through
guess
line.
what it is? I bet
You'll
that
never
I'll give
guess.
it away.
They'll never
It's got
guess.
a mime and it's got the Lord's
There's-
Prayer.
There's the
What
Lord
could it
Prayer and
be?
the mime. What's the movie? We'll find out in just a few.
It's gonna be really
short
fucking
minutes.
obvious from that.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what it is, you're a fake fan of that movie.
Dumb. Honestly, dumb. I
never
hate to call
know.
the listeners dumb, but no, I'm kidding. Okay, here's the thing. This was a reference to silent era star Buster Keaton. That's who that man was dressed up as. Apparently, people just knew that in the 80s, I guess, because when she flips around with the gun after faking him out that she's like scared, she probably is a little bit scared. She's not a sociopath.
Yeah,
don't
I think
think.
she would have
She-
preferred to just get away through the gate without having any sort of interaction.
Yeah, and also I think she was like doing a sleight of hand thing too to like pull out the gun so he wouldn't suspect it. But she turns around and she says, "Hold it right there, Buster," in her accent. And I thought that was like really weird for her to say that. Like,
She
Buster.
doesn't seem
I
like
was
a Buster kind of gal.
I was like, okay, maybe Buster was big in the 80s. No, she's calling him by his name, Buster Keaton,
Buster.
the actor that he is portraying. So I thought that was super interesting. He was in The General and Sherlock Jr., which are some very popular films from that era. But also, this was from the Screen Rant article. They're like, there's also some the hilarious play on words because she calls him Buster and then she's literally a ball buster.
she's
Moments
busted.
later, she's literally busting balls. I thought that was really funny and good job, Ty West. There's a little bit too much going on there, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fun though also because like that's part of the Hollywoods, the characters. Like she's walking
Yeah.
home, they've got the montage. You see Wonder Woman outside of the porn theater and blah blah blah. Like they've got all of the people in costume on Hollywood Boulevard who are
yeah,
not
Dressed
hawking
up.
their wares, but you know, doing their thing. Busking. And also I did really like in the beginning when she drops the cigarette and she grinds it out and it's on Theta Barra's star, however you say her name, which is what Pearl named her alligator. Or crocodile after.
yes. I love
thought that was
that
fun.
reference to the movies. I don't think we even mentioned it. The very opening scene where the stage doors open, just like the barn doors
Yeah.
open in both
Mhm.
Pearl and X. Loved that. I thought that was a really cute, fun nod. I love those through
Well,
lines.
But also,
But
again, the goose bowl of cocaine and Pearl's goose that she kills.
Yeah, I didn't think about that one. That's such a good
MaXXXine
one.
does cocaine and X also.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that was
Lots of
also
Pearl.
for sure.
I think Pearl would have loved cocaine too if she only had the chance.
Oh my
She
god,
would have
Pearl
loved
on
it.
cocaine. Help us all. I think the
Well,
other
you also
really-
get like the soldiers on the back lot later on too that
Yeah.
look like the soldiers from Pearl.
the soldiers on the back lot. We mentioned the Psycho House already, but I didn't realize that the scene when MaXXXine sees Pearl for the first time in X was a reference to Psycho, looking up in the window and seeing an old woman in the
Yeah.
window. That just didn't really hit for me at that time because I hadn't seen Psycho in a really long time. But that was what that was. And also Ty West wrote the Psycho House thing into the script like from moment one. And then he was like, wait, what if the Hitchcock estate says no? I don't have another option for this plot narrative device. So he was like, and then they said yes. So it was okay. But the other
I think they
reference
would
that
have figured it out. It would have been
I
fine.
know. He was panicking though, because he was like, usually that when it's some sort of like media piece
Sure.
like that, they put in
You don't want to
like
write in the specific song because you don't
song.
know that you'll get the
Exactly.
rights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Exactly that. So he made the big mistake of doing that, but then it ended up being fine. But the final reference that I clocked, at least, there's probably 20,000 more, but intermovie reference was that Leon, Moses Sumney's character, is watching an alligator movie where someone's
Yes, yeah.
being launched. And it could have been either 1979's The Great Alligator or 1976's Eaten Alive or 1980's Alligator. And now I have 3 movies to add to my watch
Whoa.
list.
Right? I want to watch a 70s alligator movie and compare.
Yeah. And y'all were talking about Crawl in the Discord the other day.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
never
We're talking about
seen
fun things
that.
in the Discord, by the way, if you want to be
Oh,
in the
yeah.
Discord.
Yeah.
Sexy, sexy Discord talk. Honestly, Discord's popping off. We're having a great time. We're sharing exclusives.
$5 tier, $8 tier, either will get you
We're-
into the Discord server.
We're live talking to people through movies. I did DM Chris and sent him every single one of my reactions to In a Violent Nature, and he
Fair
was
enough.
accepting of that. We had a great time.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, Chris rocks. We got a great group. If you want to make friends, join our Patreon. Wow. Patreon.com/spooky_Tuesday. Baked in. Look at us.
Whoa.
Whoa. But yeah, I love how much Ty thinks about putting all of the lore of all of his films and self-referencing. Okay, it's a word now. I love the self-referential nature of this movie. I think I was talking to Sydney about this before we started recording. He made such a big deal about like how he wanted every movie in this franchise to be able to be watched without having seen any of the other ones. And I don't think that works for MaXXXine at all. He even referenced it in a lot of these articles I was reading this time that was one of his goals. I really think it would be hard to watch MaXXXine without having seen X, but I do think it works for X and Pearl for sure. But I think of course they're better all together.
Yeah, I think you could watch MaXXXine and appreciate it for what it is without seeing Pearl, just by being like, this girl has gone through a traumatic experience where she was the only survivor, and he's doing the flashbacks. You know what I mean? So like
That's
you're
true.
seeing a good chunk of it. It's obviously 1,000 times richer if you've seen
think you really
X
get
because
it.
like
You wouldn't get the dad aspect a
You
lot
wouldn't get the
either,
dad,
too.
you
you
wouldn't get-
beginning.
but barely. It wouldn't be.
They're not
would
giving you much more
be-
in X though.
Yeah, they are. You're getting
Yeah,
like
they
a
are.
lot of backstory for MaXXXine.
That's one of the things. That's what I meant when I was saying that there's more finesse in X with the reveals of things than in this movie. Like throughout X, you have the televangelist who's on TV whenever you're in Pearl's house.
That's true. Okay.
Pearl and Howard's house, that's on at all times. Similarly, how every TV is tuned to something about the Night Stalker in this movie. But like, and then that reveal at the end, like punched, and it was cool, and you couldn't have possibly seen it coming because they couldn't give you enough. Like, the issue is that Ty West wrote X, and then he wrote Pearl right off the bat, and then MaXXXine was written later, and so he didn't know if Pearl would even be greenlit, you know, so he wouldn't know if MaXXXine would be greenlit by A24, and so I don't think it had the forethought to make this like a killer twist ending for me, because you know there was one guy left that it could possibly be, like we were saying earlier, from X, and so you know.
Yeah, I think you could. I think Pearl is a standalone and X is a standalone. Like you don't have to see Pearl to see X, and you don't have to see X to see Pearl at all. And but I think MaXXXine, you do at least have to see X.
Yeah. And it's, of course, the most fun when they're all together because you've got all this context and you're like, wow, those references to Pearl. Remember when she was young and she was fucking going wild?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
can't
did-
wait
that
to
was
do
one of
like
my-
Pearl X MaXXXine and like watch them in chronological order now.
Oh,
Yeah.
like you would do chronological
Pearl.
at the time you start with Pearl?
Yeah.
That could be fun. Yeah,
Like
that
you
would be
would start
fun.
with Pearl, you would go to
Because
X,
if you put
and
it
then
in
would
the
end
middle, the
MaXXXine.
vibe shift is weird.
Yeah.
No, totally. I think that would be the ideal way to watch them. I haven't done that yet either. And I can't because they took them all off of streaming. Shakes fist. I'm
How
not going to
dare.
spend
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. Okay, I will say one of my first reactions to this movie was I like it more as the ending of a trilogy than as a standalone
Yeah,
film.
I remember when you said that. Yeah.
So, I mean, it is kind of like Scream 3 in that way. People are so mad at Scream 3 because it rewrites the lore or whatever, which, like, true and understandable why you would be mad about that. But it is meant to, like, close the door on things. And so you kind of want the circle back. Because if you're just opening a new door again, it's like, okay, you could keep doing that forever, which they did end up doing in the Scream franchise. But to like close the circle, you know what I mean? I think Scream 3 was great at that, and I think this movie is great at that. But
Yeah.
again, as he's like hinting, maybe he'll continue the franchise, maybe he won't, whatever, blah blah blah. If he comes up with a good idea, it's one of those things where it's like it's a good bookend, but would it be a good installment on its own if there's more? I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like for most movies in a long franchise, you're supposed to have seen some of the other ones for it to make sense. So I don't think it's necessarily a fault of the film for it to not be standalone, but I do know that was one of his goals, and I just don't know if he hit the mark on that part of it for this one, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
The vibes are still vibing, and we haven't even talked about Kevin Bacon yet.
Oh, the way that I looked at Taylor, and he's gonna give the exact same reaction that you two are, and I go, I'm gonna have a gold tooth one day, and he was just like, please don't. And I was
He's
like,
got two gold teeth, like little
I
fangs.
want like a
God.
gold,
Oh,
like
yeah.
one of my big teeth, like one of my little like canine teeth. If that
Mm.
ever needs a cap, I'm getting a gold tooth. I'm getting a gold tooth.
We
I
have
think
a
that's
friend
such a
who
slay.
wanted a gold tooth for a cavity
Sydney.
filling, and it was a different friend, but they like actually pursued trying to get it done, and it was much
Oh.
harder to do
I know who
than
it is.
you would expect. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I think it was
yeah,
one of
they
those things
don't-
also where it's like insurance will not cover it anymore
Yeah,
because it's no
they
longer
couldn't get it.
standard. So
You have to go to
It's
like an
very hard.
old-timey dentist, and they're the only ones who will still do it. And my old-timey dentist closed, and it's a hot button topic for me.
I got a crown, and they like it's one of the back teeth, and they were like,
Mhm.
we can do gold. It's actually a better thing.
You've got
you
the
know,
good shit in Bama.
like that's fine. Like we will still do it. And I was like, it's a back. Nobody's gonna see it. Like you do
If
have
it's
to pay.
hidden away, yeah.
You do
But what
like
if you open your
insurance
mouth?
will.
Oh,
Like I want one of these. Like it's literally like the last tooth in my mouth. I'm
can I
not
say
spending
something?
the money on it. One of my front teeth, even a bottom, that's
100%.
gold. Gold. A
I
back
can't
teeth,
stop you. I don't live in the same state as so I can't physically bar you from doing this. So
I'm
I really
showing
don't
up
have
in
any
a
beef
gold
with
tooth
you
at
getting a
some
gold
point.
tooth. I'm supportive of you getting a
I
gold
think it
tooth
would-
if
if
you
you
can
can get a
manage it.
gold tooth, I don't want you to do grills. That's the other thing. But anyway,
But gold
let me
tooth,
say
that's
something.
fine.
Let me say something about sucking dick to change the subject.
Okay.
When MaXXXine, sorry, we're jumping around. I wanted to say this earlier. When MaXXXine puts the golden gun into Buster's mouth, and she's like, "Suck it." My thought today when I watched it was like, this guy has never sucked a dick before because you can hear his teeth clanking all over everything.
How much teeth would you like?
I was like, this is my astute film critic comment that I have.
This man
about
has
this
never
scene.
sucked a dick in his entire life. Sad.
So fucking funny.
He did have some enthusiasm for it though. Like when she
his
said
life
suck
depended
it,
on it.
I thought he was just gonna put his mouth on it, but he really was
He bobbed his head.
sucking
he was trying to
it.
save his own life, you know? He was like, this lady's crazy.
He
I
said,
gotta
let me
give the
go
performance
above
of a
and
lifetime.
beyond. Let me take a little initiative, and maybe that'll help.
The cat's trying to kill me. Uh, okay, sorry, Kevin Bacon. Back to Kevin Bacon real quick. Something funny
His
about
accent
how
work is
he
what's really
came
fucking crazy.
iconic. Something funny about
He's
how he
from
came into this
Louisiana.
movie though was that, like, again, another transplant. Kevin Bacon apparently, like, Ty West had heard that he likes Ty West's work, and he was like, oh well, I don't know if that's true, but we do have this character. Let's just reach out to him, see if he'd be down. I don't think he didn't want to just believe the rumors that Kevin Bacon loved his work. He didn't want to just rest on his laurels. He was like, I'm still going to approach this with like reverence to our Lord and Savior, Kevin Bacon. And Kevin Bacon was like, I fuck with this heavy. And basically, like, he said that Kevin Bacon, Lily Collins, and Elizabeth Debicki all really wanted to be in this movie because they wanted to, like, they were like, the last role that I had was really great, but I really want to do something fucking completely different. So they're like, I'm gonna freak with it in MaXXXine. And I thought that was really funny. Like, how wonderful that your movie can be the thing for like these well-known, more serious actors or different tone actors to just be like, let's fucking go. You know, I'm gonna do
like,
the weirdest shit
we-
imaginable.
They said, Ty West, we want to match your freak, actually.
Yeah. Please, I've been wanting to just get a little freaky with it, but they won't let me because I'm being typecast as whatever Kevin Bacon is. But he's done his horror stuff before.
Yeah.
We've all
Horror
seen
King.
They Slash Them.
He's in the first Friday the 13th movie.
He's also in. I watched
We're
that
talking
horror
about
movie
They
with
Slash
him and
Them.
Amanda
Oh,
Seyfried,
okay.
and it was. I was not impressed. Where it's like, you can't leave this house or something like that.
He's redeemed himself here, though. I thought, okay, one, Bonaventure Hotel is the fucking coolest hotel ever. I like went and explored it for like a whole day a couple months back. And it's just an absolute wonder, an architectural wonder. And it's so bizarre on the inside because it has this whole like 80s mall inside of it, but like 90% of the things that were there are closed down, but the signs are still there. It's really eerie and it's really cool. And it's also been in like so many like futuristic movies. I think it's in Interstellar and all this stuff. But I've always wanted to go up to the freaking revolving hotel at the top. So I was like, that's what it looks like. Wow. I was fangirling over that hotel. And I also really loved that MaXXXine beat him to shit with a key in her hand. I
love that. I was like,
sick.
that's our girl. She's giving Pearl right now.
Yes. Flying off the handle, but deserved. She was like, I can get away with this. Also, did y'all notice that Giancarlo Esposito, best name in the world, Teddy Knight Esquire in this film? When MaXXXine busts into his office and he's on the phone, he's talking to someone and he says, yeah, we can do this if you let me use your car lot
The junkyard.
for a while. The junkyard for a while. So he does that a lot, I think. I think that he squishes people quite often.
Yeah, he said
work.
that
He's a fixer.
knew how to handle things. And that's the
Yeah.
kind of man that you want to know, actually.
He said
thought it
he'd
was
go to
just
jail
so-
for her, so
I just thought it was so funny that he was literally like setting up another person to be squished in that phone call or before he even knew about what was going on with MaXXXine.
There was in the squish scene, there was a little bit too much blood, I think, coming out.
yeah.
But
I
like
think the
I
blood
liked
was
it,
not
but
realistic.
it wasn't realistic. Fake blood lover, loved every second of it and was like, actually, there should be
waterfall.
more blood, like shining
It
level
should be
amounts of
spraying
blood.
out, yeah, like this.
Yeah, like if you're gonna do it, make it a gag. Let it go
Yeah.
everywhere. Like have them covered in blood too, and like look away. You know what I mean? Like
I still
commit to the
liked it
bit.
though. I
Yeah,
loved
and,
that
like-
part. I was like, I wish there could be more of that in this movie, more of that fucking gory bite and the ridiculousness and the club scene before it. That was
Oh, the
reminding
club
me of
scene.
like Sprite night when they had their club night too. Like, I don't know.
And the bathroom was chicks CHIX. And so I was like, and there they are sneaking more X's into this movie. They had that sign at the audition that was like, do you have the X factor? Like, they're just trying to get it in wherever they can.
I minus all the like serial killers and stuff like that in 80s, I would love to just like time travel back in time to Los Angeles in the 80s, you know?
There's that Night Stalker, girl. I know you
The
said other
vibes
than
were
serial
vibing,
killers, but
we
it's
would have been
crazy back
killed.
then.
Yeah.
That said,
I don't know how anybody survived the 80s between all the drugs and all the people just stabbing you as you walk down the street.
Yeah, there's a lot of
No.
serial killers at Los
Rough.
Angeles in the 80s.
Rough times. Kids
was
were
a
just
different time.
disappearing. They're
they
like,
didn't
damn,
have
Johnny's
DNA.
gone.
You could
Oh,
just
did
do
you hear?
crimes and it was fine.
Little Susie's gone too. Oh no, little Cherry, she's gone as well. Like the kids are just dropping like fucking flies.
I did like the tie-in with the actual like Night Stalker and like the footage and the stuff like that. Like,
I like the footage.
Sure.
I just don't know. I don't know if I loved that part for me. Like, I just feel like the movie felt a little, even though there's so many long, meandering parts of this movie and so many shots of the word Hollywood, you know what I mean? It also felt like not complicated, but busy. There are like so many characters and they were so like doing their own one thing, their own little monologue. They weren't like all together, that it was just like a lot of people to balance. And then we also have the Night Stalker thing going on, and she's being stalked by this Giallo guy. And there's the fucking cops, and there's the boy cop who's a fucking hilarious, and the hot girl cop. And it's just like there's just a lot going on. I feel like the Night Stalker thing, I get that it was supposed to be a distraction, a believability factor for the 80s, the fact that it's the 80s setting and is a possible answer to the whodunit question. But I just like
it brings in the satanic panic aspect of like the movie, quite frankly, because like that
okay,
like
that's fair. Was there a big like satanic thing around the Night Stalker? I don't know
Yes.
everything about him.
Yeah, they were calling him like the devil, and he was like leaving. Like it was a huge thing.
Okay, and so that
him.
adds into the whole branding with the
Yes. Like
Satan
they were
thing.
trying to
Okay,
make,
all right.
yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
That does make it make more sense for me. It does.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting that they were contrasting all of the different time periods that they were referencing, where it's like they're obviously referencing the age of the Puritans in the movie The Puritan, and then they're also referencing the 50s and the sequel The Puritan 2, and it's showing like, oh, we always talk about that as like a time of splendor, but there was this dark underside to it also, which is so interesting now in the 2020s, because it's like that's kind of how we talk about the 80s these days, is like the 80s was this age of splendor and economic wonder, and Reagan was the president and blah blah blah, and then it's like
Some
they're
people
bringing us
refer to
back
it
to
that way.
this.
There was so much murder in the 80s. The 80s
But
were
they're
so
bringing it back and
were
being
a
like,
hellhole.
remember, that's what I'm
Everyone
saying.
was dying. Everyone was dying.
There was so much
But-
lead. You had lead in the gasoline, lead in the paint. Like
But it's part of the revisionist history that we so
Totally.
often do,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
the current times are always shitty and terrible, and the past times were wonderful, and we need to go back to them. And it's like they were not wonderful, and we need to go back to them, and they were golden, and they had everything figured out.
they
Like
were
maybe
shitty
some people
just
had
like it is now.
wonderful
There's
lives, but yeah,
Good
there
and
was
bad
terrible
at
things.
all times.
That is humanity, and that is going to be consistent throughout humanity until we solve all of the world's problems, which is not happening anytime soon.
Which will be
I
any
mean,
day now.
Reagan-
What do you mean?
I mean, Reagan did ruin the economy in the 80s for everybody now. So like
What do you mean? Reagan was the best president ever.
bleh.
I thought it was I felt bad for Moses in the title card because it showed a picture of Reagan and it said Moses Sumney. And I was like, poor Moses. That
Poor
he has,
Moses. Stuck with
that he has to
Reagan.
be on the Reagan part. That's just not fair.
I did think it was not really a particular 80s reference or anything like that. But when they find the bodies of Amber and Tabby in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, I think.
Yeah, that was
Um
Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
the police say two homos cruising Judy Garland's grave are the ones who found the bodies. And I was just like, two homos
Loved that.
cruising Judy Garland's grave, slay.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I love that like Moses's character was definitely like Leon was definitely queer because he like was like, I'm the only person who doesn't want to fuck you.
Yep.
Why? Okay. Maybe he's just not into MaXXXine, but I don't think so. And then there's also that moment at the end of his life, just before he dies, when that older man comes into the VHS store and is like, you never really see him, you just see part of him, but Leon is like, we don't do that anymore. Anymore is the word.
This is just a video store now. Yeah.
Just a video store now. I think he was like coming in for something else. But that said, I did like look at Leon's expression. And he looked like super disgusted by it when he was closing the thing, but maybe he was just like, ugh, I really wouldn't have wanted that with that man or something like that. Cause I don't know, it made me second guess what I thought was so clear the first time I watched it. Cause he just looked like really not down, but who knows?
You could have had a bad manner in approaching him.
Yeah, that could be it. That could be it. I think that his kill was awesome. I loved the eye slash. That was really cool.
Yeah, the eye slash was good. The earring, pulling out the earring is usually something that would horrify me, but because he was already dead, it was a very nothing burger. But considering who the killer is, it makes sense that he's like upside down cross. That's satanic, and you don't deserve to have a cross anywhere on your person. And that's why I'm yanking this specifically, rather than it being like part of the torture of the killing scene.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it still made me, because I watched, when I watched it again today, I was like, is he already dead? He could still be a little bit alive, but I mean, he did lose a lot of blood and stabbed in the back. He'd been having a rough go of things.
Lots of spray, yeah.
We've been jumping around. We've touched on how Kevin Bacon dies. We talked about the girl.
What we didn't touch on about how Kevin Bacon dies is how Elizabeth Debicki is like, whatever's going on in your personal life, squash it. And then he gets
Squished.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Also, putting it to bed, if Danny is listening, he is our friend. He was like, why the fuck did MaXXXine rush out the door to see why the police
I texted
were there?
him about that.
But she put on pants, okay, fine. But she put on her big hoop earrings, and I was convinced she had fallen asleep in them the night before. No, she did not. She wanted to
put them on.
glammed up to see her dead best friend.
That's her signature look, her signature accessory.
Gotta have the big hoopies. I can't wait.
I'm not leaving my house without them.
If you thought that I was a dead body or you thought something happened to me, I would hope you would dress up to identify my body. Okay, so
I thought it was a little wild of them showing her like his dead corpse in front of like other people too. But it was the 80s, you know. Who are we to say there was no
rules? We can get away with whatever we want.
The whole cop thing, there had to be cops in it because it's supposed to be a noir movie anyway. But it was, oh God, it was just the man cop whose name escapes me.
Bobby Cannavale.
Just like,
or
really,
Cannavale.
I think he's so hot. I think he's so hot.
I do too.
I love him. They were so hot, which redeemed the fact that I just had to keep dealing with them being in it all the time. It was funny.
They also gave her a can of New Coke, which was a good 80s reference.
Yeah.
The outfit that the lady cop wears, handing MaXXXine that can of New Coke, is such a fucking slay.
The cunty boots, all of these women.
The cunty boots,
they're all wearing like
leather
jacket.
Boots. I was like, oh, yes.
I also loved the tall boots with the jeans that Elizabeth Debicki was wearing, Elizabeth Bender was wearing, and her like fucking like big shoulder pad jacket. She was giving like horse girl 80s realness, and it was fucking fire.
I was into it. That's a power lesbian.
Lady Cop was
Agree.
giving Laura
Yeah.
Croft Tomb Raider realness, but
Another
80s
power
version.
lesbian.
Slash Indiana Jones realness. So loved all of it. But before we get towards the very, very final things going on in this movie, I just want to touch on the running through the Universal backlot, being chased by Kevin Bacon. That part I just thought was really fun. It was ridiculous. It's one of the things that I was like, okay, this is just so Hollywood can be a character. But it was fun. And the studio tour is
West.
my favorite thing. So
Yeah, I was looking at Taylor. I go, we could go to Universal Studios and do the tour, and you will see all of this, and it's a good time, and we should do it next time you're there.
that was my
Ty
dream job
West
when I was
came
in
onto
high
this
school.
movie.
To be the
He came
tour
onto
guide.
this movie to have fun. He said everyone gets to do whatever accent they want, and we have access to the backlot, so we're gonna use it, and we're gonna just show all these different sets, and we're gonna go into the Psycho house, and she's gonna run up there to seek refuge from Kevin Bacon, even though it's an empty husk inside, and there's nowhere for her to go. But that's what
I think
we're
he
doing.
locked
We're
the
just having
door.
fun with it.
Yeah. It was
And
funny.
I guess like if her whole thing with Kevin Bacon is that she doesn't want anybody to find out about her past at all, she doesn't want to be running back towards the set and have like Elizabeth Bender or any of the other people on the movie see her or see
Yeah,
him. So
she's
she's
gotta
like, I have to
protect her
run the opposite
reputation.
direction.
Totally.
I kind of feel like it wouldn't really hurt her career if people found out about the Texas porn star massacre, which I did love as the newspaper headline.
That
was so
good.
funny.
I don't know. I think it would because she didn't help the cops.
Yeah, like she ran away.
Because she ran away and she didn't say anything. That's weird. And it's like I get why she did it. She just wanted to get the fuck away from there, so she's never around there again. But I think that it is incriminating, even though we know she didn't do anything wrong. I think everything she did was right and she's perfect.
I think Teddy could help her spin it.
Yeah, but I
He
get
knows how
why
to
she
control
just
the
wants,
narrative
I
clearly.
think it's a trauma response too. She just wants to
Sure.
pretend it never
Yeah.
happened and just focus on
Yeah.
being a star. And also like everything that happens on the backlot is so fun. I did love my girl Sophie Thatcher being the FX
Yes.
artist. That was so funny. And I did love Lily Collins, even though I don't really care about her.
It was really crazy when she finally did it.
Her accent was so fun. And she is stunning. I've not watched anything with her in it. So it's like my first time really looking at her face. But I was like, she's gorgeous. And I thought it was stupid. But the whole like scream face thing that she did, that was hilarious. It was dumb. See, this is like
and
how
it
you
was
tell us in a better
funny-
mood this time, because I was like, that's dumb last time, and this time I was like, yeah.
Well, it was funny too because like we would see we saw MaXXXine talk about like this is gonna be my face on the cover, and like we see it when her and Moses like are asleep and like the face is and the credits are rolling, and then so we see her like doing it, and then when her head gets chopped off, she's making that exact same face.
I know.
Yeah, and then in the actual credits for this movie, you've got the fake MaXXXine head, or Veronica, it's her character, but you've got that head as like the credits roll. So it is like a fun
really
little
Okay,
thing
but
that they're
how
doing.
do I get severed of my own head?
Well,
I'll cover you
you
in
don't
goop.
do it the way that they fucking did it in this movie, because there's literally no way for her to breathe the way they did it. They
I thought
didn't
they
put
normally
the
put, like-
tubes in her nose. When she falls over backwards, you can see it comes all the way over her nose and it's all the way over her mouth. Like they
I will
fully
say,
didn't do it.
I do think the straws are important and good for safety, but they show that like 5 minutes have passed before she starts to have any sort of freak out. So I think she could breathe when it was like just dripping around her nostrils, but it's after she falls and like
Yeah.
now it can flow
Totally,
into
but
her nose with gravity.
the
But
fact that it's moving so much, that the goop is moving that much.
yeah, the
Girl,
goop
you
should
need
set
long
faster
tubes.
than that.
Also, I said this to Chelsea when we saw that movie. If I ever got a live cast of my face done, and if Sophie Thatcher didn't sit next to me the whole time and talk to me to distract me, I would go crazy. No, don't leave anyone alone with their thoughts when they're covered in goop. That's why MRIs
Yeah.
are so terrifying, because you have to just raw dog it, as people say.
There was another person in that room when Sophie Thatcher's character started gooping her up. So I think it was one of those things where it's just like she had to go get more bandages for whatever reason. I don't know
I know.
why.
I'm just
It was
saying,
very silly.
interpersonally, I wouldn't have let her leave. I would have been like, I need you to stay with me, because I'd be scared. I'm just saying, personal preference. Don't fucking leave me.
No, totally. I just think her character probably was like, oh, people are in here. People are in it. She didn't think about how in that moment nobody was there. She's just like,
Yeah.
people are coming and going. People are around.
Okay, last thing I'll say before we get to this exciting conclusion of this movie. Do you feel like, I got the feeling watching it this time that there's so much left on the cutting room floor for this movie? There are so many like little things. Like, I feel like there must have been other scenes with Sophie Thatcher. Like, it just like felt so random to have her there, and she's in the background of all these other things. I wonder if they were maybe gonna kill her at one iteration of the movie, because it's just like she's like a bigger actress in my mind than the role warranted, but also she is going to be an A24 darling in just a few short months with Heretic. So that could be why. But there's and also with the Halsey kill, I think was the other thing too. I was like, I know that Halsey overacted her ass off in this kill scene, and then they just edited into what this was. Because she literally had 2 stunt doubles listed in the credits, and she like doesn't do anything. So I feel like they must have like something must have gone on there, that it was redacted or something, or they didn't want to make it quite as gory. But
I bet
don't
they
know.
felt like if they showed those kill scenes, because the dad says later, and he is doing these kills in front of his parishioners. So I think if we had seen that, we would have seen that he was being like, do you rebuke Satan, or whatever his
That's
thing
true.
was.
Could have given
And it would
away
have
too
given away
soon.
too much, like what
You're
the
right. You're
game
right. Okay.
was.
That also makes me like it more. Okay. That's fine. I will say this. The setting for the finale of this, I wish that house was a real thing. That's fucking iconic.
I
The
know.
fucking gondola.
The gondola right under
gondola?
the Hollywood sign.
Do you
That
think
is
the dad
amazing.
killed whoever really lives at that house so that he could have access to it? What do you think there's so much going
I have
on
no
behind the
idea.
scenes? Like, how did he get the word out to these girls that there is going to be a big Hollywood party in the hills? If he killed whoever lived there, maybe he got access to their Rolodex. And he has all of these followers, obviously, who can
Yeah, he's
probably
got a lot
position
of folks
themselves
at his
well enough.
disposal.
And it's like the 80s, so it's not like you can Google someone afterwards and be like, that person's not who they said they were. So, like,
Yeah.
I just would love to. It's not part of the movie. I would love to know more of the mechanisms of how the dad is pulling this off.
He's got a lot of money
And
from
like,
being a famous televangelist. So
was he trying to get Maxine? This is kind of the same thing with Scream. Is like in Scream, so often the whole thing is like they've got the big final monologue at the end that they've been waiting to deliver to Sydney or whoever in the other sequels. But they've been trying to kill Sydney throughout the movie. So it's like, again, was that just to psychologically torture her? Or is it like you would have killed her first go, never delivered a monologue, and she would have just been dead? Because it's like if Maxine had gone to these parties from the beginning of the movie, would he have just gotten her then originally, or was he like building up to it? Is that part of like the game? I don't know. I'm curious about that.
I think that he thinks on his feet. You have to when you're an evil
A grifter.
cult leader. So, I I have to say, the first time around, when they first showed the dad's face, I was like, what the fuck is this? This time around, now knowing that he's the gayest pastor that ever existed in the entire world, is so funny. He's also wearing so much makeup. So much makeup. And I feel like that at first I was like, why do they do his makeup like that? But then I was like, no, he did his makeup like that because he knows he's going to be on TV or he's going to be in his documentary that he's making. So he's wearing like fucking stage makeup pretty much, like cakey to the nth degree. And I think he's actually wearing eyeliner. Um it's
Oh, for sure.
so funny.
Yeah, I mean, he is again, he's so camp. He is absolutely speaking to the back of the audience, you know. It's like he doesn't he hasn't moderated. He may be a televangelist, but he's used to like preaching to the church and getting to the people in the way back pews. You know what I mean? He doesn't realize that you can do a little less on TV. But
Well, I think it looked
he's
good
just doing
with
the
the
most.
film, like with the camera.
That's true.
You have to
It's
wear that much makeup
iconic.
or it washes you out. Like what we see is the movie, but then when it's on like the little like square film, it plays the way it's supposed to. But I thought it was funny because I was like, what the fuck? And then I was like, oh no, he's just a showman in his show makeup, which looks horrifying close
He's a
up.
star,
I
just like his
also
daughter.
We love the not Mia Goth, the Lily Collins head drop, but that's great. I was frustrated not frustrated. It made sense. She was taken aback. It's her dad. It's the first time she's seen him in how many years? A long fucking time. Maybe 10 years. And so like she's such a fighter usually in these movies and in all these different instances. She's busting balls, she's stabbing people in the face with keys. And so it was hard to see her get taken down so quickly with the bag and all of that stuff. But I'm glad they gave her agency back because she had the knife with her. She came prepared, that sort of thing, that she was able to cut her ties. Because she was really like in a super vulnerable position there for a while. I was confused. I thought that he killed her when he had the bag over her head, because that is a really good way to kill someone, is suffocating them. But no, it was just to make her pass out in the most dramatic way possible. And I loved it. It's great on the screen. But yeah, we get everything with this movie. A firefight between the cops, more badass lines from the man cop whose name still escapes me. I thought that whole showdown was really funny, and I also thought it was just really interesting, like what the mindset was behind her father and how he translated being a televangelist and turned all of this satanic panic shit into this, like they're exorcising demons from these people by killing them. Like he has these people in a chokehold that he could convince
I
them of
don't
this.
know that that's what he said he was doing with them. I think he was trying to exorcise them, but the demon could not be exorcised,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they
yeah.
had to be killed.
Sorry, yeah, that's definitely what I mean. You like couldn't get the demon out of them, so the only thing to do is slash them down,
right, because
eradicate
that's what
them.
he's saying to her. He's saying, play along, which is to say, get exercised for my grift and I'll let you live. That's what the
Yeah.
deal is. Come back into the fold like you were before. Again, that's why I think she always knew what his thing was as the televangelist pastor. She was always in on it. And then she was just tired of like playing that role. But that's also why she's like, I know I'm a performer. I know I'm a star. I know I can act. I know I can pull it off. I know I can do whatever I want and be believable. And I know how to turn on the waterworks so immediately in this audition, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Like she has been acting her ass off since she was a little kid.
When you grow up on the stage, that becomes your home and that becomes what you expect and what you just like part of your life, you know? And so she grew up on the stage with him, and so of course she'd want to keep that spotlight because she's used to it, and make it her own in her own right without his fucking weird influence. I also love that she got to stab that guy up the nose with the knife when she's having that fight underneath the water.
I know.
The water. That was
I was
so
like, take
good.
a knife though.
Brutal. Yeah, that's true. I guess they probably
He'll
took
bleed
the
out
kni-
faster, and then you'll have a knife.
She probably had the gun with her when she came there, because I was like, "Where's the gun?" But they definitely took it off her after they fucking strangled her with the bag. So that's where that comes in. I think
I did
also
love that
just
she put on those high heel boots to go face down to whomever, though.
That
She was like,
Cunty.
it
yes,
was cunty. It was so not practical. But
yeah, she
again,
almost fell down the stairs.
she put on scary red eye makeup just to watch Kevin Bacon die. And then they had those scary dogs again, just to be scary and gross, that they didn't use at all, other than they licked up the blood. So like they're doing a lot of things just for effect. And
Just to be
she said,
cunty.
I need my confidence cunty boots.
That's important.
I need my
It's
signature
important.
earrings to go look at my friend's body, and I need my cunty confidence boots to go have final showdown.
It's important to wear your like lucky necklace when you're going into an interview. It's the same thing. You got to feel good to do good work. You know what I mean? So
I did like that she wore that jacket all the time though too. I thought it was very
Yeah.
iconic. And I was trying to figure out the whole second time I was watching it what it says. I think it says state champs on the back, and it says MaXXXine on the front, and I don't think that's a holdover from her childhood, so I think that's probably a porn that she must have done, and that was a wrap gift at the end of shooting.
That's iconic.
So
Love it.
I
That's
think
so
that's what
good.
happened there.
Also, like, if you're gonna do a movie, Ty West, where LA, Hollywood is a character, doing the final showdown on the fucking Hollywood sign is a must and a slay and iconic. So it's
And she like
so
army
the
crawled
most
up the hill
dramatic.
to get there.
I loved
And she was
it.
like
I loved
huffing
it.
and puffing too.
Yeah. And I just feel so bad for, say his name, the man cop.
Bobby Cannavale? I don't know.
Bobby, yeah, that guy. I feel bad for him because, like, imagine your last words being, I wanted to be an actor too. Last words. Literally, those were his last
Well,
words.
you didn't do it.
Well, you didn't do it, but you did have some good lines. They were all poorly timed. He was really vamping the whole movie. It was hilarious. And also, I love the drama of the lady cop with the with the cross in her eye. She's like,
That
I
was
told you
so
I'd get him.
funny.
That was
Mhm.
so funny.
And then she just like falls off the hill.
tumbles all the way down. I hope that she survived because I like her a lot and she's got the hot boots.
Michelle Monaghan.
Michelle Monaghan, that's it. She's gorgeous. I have a huge crush on her. But okay, I've told Chelsea this already, but the first time I saw this movie, I was really confused by the ending and what was happening and what was a flashback and what wasn't a flashback. And I think that's just on me. That's just on me. But I did get it a lot more this time. I think it was a lot clearer. But I was very confused about what was happening the first time I saw it.
The thing with it is, I do think it's on you for being confused about what was a flashback and what's not a flashback, but what's not on you is like the purpose of that, because it really didn't stick the landing with whatever it was trying to convey, I think, because it's like, okay, the LAPD helicopter is overhead. They're saying, Maxine Minx, put the gun down. We know who you are and what you're doing. And if you take this shot, there will be consequences, is presumably the subtext of what they're telling her. Is they're saying, we see you. At this point, it will not be self-defense, whatever you choose to do. And so she has this like vision of the future where she's successful and she's able to spin it, and she helped capture him, and she can do everything she wants, and she's got a star on Hollywood, and everybody's so amazed with her for this movie, blah blah blah. And so you cut back to her, and so it's like, okay, if she decides to fire the gun, that's what she's giving up potentially. She can decide between superstardom or finally putting this to bed and having the revenge on her father that she wants to have, and knowing that like she was the one who like ended it for good. But then it's like 1 month later and she's shooting her movie where she's the star and everybody's like, yay, yay, you did it. So it's like there weren't any. It's set up to be like there will be consequences for this action, MaXXXine, and then there are no consequences for the action.
I agree and I disagree with you. I don't think it's like necessarily saying like the vision that she's having is like this is what happens if you don't kill him. I feel like there's a read of that, but I don't think that's necessarily explicitly like Ty West's intent. I feel like it's just like her daydreaming about like her life after this and how like she's gonna be a hero because she took down a serial killer. And I think it's like her being like, wow, this is going to be so amazing. And then also, it's MaXXXine. We know her. This bitch has valid rage issues. You know what I mean? When it takes time, when she has to do a kill to save her own life or do something to protect herself, she does it in the most like maybe not the most over violent way possible, but in a very, very violent manner. And so, you know, she has to stay true to herself. She wants to be a star, but she has to be herself. So she had to explode his head.
I like the head exploding. It said we need more
loved
gore.
it.
They said there's our last little bit of gore to sprinkle in. And it was a shotgun, and it's not like she chose the weapon. You know what I mean? She just took what was available to her.
Yeah. And you got to have them say the line together again for the last time.
Say it with me now.
It was great. Like watching it the second time, once I fully realized what happened, because I think I might have just like blinked in that moment when the light shines on her and things like fade out and you realize that she's having a vision. Because I don't remember seeing that at all. Like the light from the helicopters on her. Like I don't remember that. So I don't know what happened to me. Maybe my mind wandered. But it was crystal clear to me this time that it was that. And also I'm glad that the sequence happens at all because we get to see her in that sexy backless dress with her fancy hair. And she looked really hot. And I love that for her. So, and that's where they actually had the premiere for the movie, was at the Grauman's Chinese Theater. So that was fun. Good for them.
That's
Good PR. Good PR. I do think it lost momentum though, going back to her in the 1 month later thing, just because then it got kind of quiet for a while, and then like they did that weird joke about Lily Collins' character dying and the very long awkward pause of silence in remembrance to her. You know, I feel like there could have been a punchier way to end the movie.
That said, her cutting her lines with her SAG card is obviously iconic.
That was so
died
funny.
laughing.
Unbelievably cunty.
That was hilarious.
That's
that
such a
needed
slay.
to be in it somehow. That was like the biggest thing ever. It's like it's a month later and I'm in SAG now, baby. And I got extra drug money. Like she's doing well for herself.
Star.
She's a fucking star. And I think it was a fun play off of Pearl to have the end shot be like the close up of her face, but it's not her face and it's the dead head thing. I feel like that was another nod to the like never ending smile in Pearl. And then it zooms out until you're literally in the outer space looking at the stars in the credits. So I was like, okay, I see you, Ty West. Not as iconic as Pearl, but not bad.
Yeah, I think the 1 month later, other than her sorting lines with her SAG card, it wasn't super punchy.
Agreed.
To me, that sequence seemed very clearly like, not like that was a realistic future necessarily, but like that's the dream that she could be giving up if she decides to kill her dad. And then nothing happens. And again, like I said, the LAPD helicopter is watching her. They've got the spotlight on her. It's not self-defense at this point. I guess it was the 80s. So I don't know.
She could be like, he made a grab for me. You know, there's like little nuances that they might not be
Sure.
able to see. So I feel like
Sure.
she could explain it away.
But it felt very like, and again, you guys are kind of saying the explanation for this is also just like personal trauma, which makes a lot of sense. But if so much of her motivation throughout the film was, I don't want people to find out what happened in Texas, for her to be like, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this on a spotlight on me, and there will be literally no repercussions. It just felt like, I don't know what I wanted to be at the end, because I do want her to get to make the movie.
Yeah.
But
There's no repercussions because it's
I don't
Maxine
know.
and she was born to be a star.
It
And
just
that was
felt like
stated. It was in the stars themselves that she would be a star.
yes. And I don't know. It felt like they put a lot of weight on her making that choice. With like literally having like the fantasy vision interrupt like the setup and the payoff to like really build it out. And then it felt like the choice was inconsequential.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what his intent was there, but I don't think the ending is as slay as it could have been. Like just the very,
Yeah.
very tail end there. It
It was
loses
kind of just
momentum.
low energy.
Yeah.
It loses momentum 100%. And it's frustrating because it really amped up like crazy towards the end there. We're getting kills after kills and a splody head.
And then Elizabeth Debicki is
then-
also like, Lily Collins didn't have it, by the way. You've got it, Maxine. And it's like, okay, all right, okay.
Yeah. Well, okay. That's the movie, but let's move into our segments. And sorry, Sydney. I
Segmentos?
misspoke. Okay, yeah. There we go. And ask
This
the
is what I
question.
mean about Monica enabling Sydney with segmentos.
I love
Everybody
it.
knows
She
that I do
teased her
that.
up. She teased her up every episode, and then when she doesn't, she goes, actually, let me rewind and tee her up.
Because then Sydney will get mad at me and I fear her. So maybe you should be scarier and then I would fear you. But I'm
I'll
more scared of
survive.
Sydney.
I'll just always go when the word is being said.
Everybody knows
I'm
how you
frowning,
feel.
so everyone knows I disapprove.
We already know.
I
We
shake
all
my
already
head
know.
so
How
everyone knows I
could-
disapprove.
How could this movie be gay?
Okay, as Sydney said, Elizabeth Debicki, lesbian.
And the
Facts.
lady cop, lesbian. And if the lady cop survived the
Their
thing,
joint slay.
well, now she has a sexy power lesbian eye patch.
Whoa.
And
Oh,
I'm sorry,
wait.
but horror movie director and sexy power lesbian eye patch cop, incredible couple. I'm just saying,
Yep.
they were on
Wow.
no
And I could
screen.
see her retiring
Tall
with,
legend.
she gets her pension from the
Celebration.
LAPD. She probably can't be a cop anymore. Now she
She-
gets to just be like sexy consultant for film and movie. And
Or
they're
she-
working together.
Or like Dewey
co-producing.
in Scream 3, she's doing that, but maybe she's also like studio lot security head.
True, maybe.
See?
Yeah, I mean, Elizabeth Debicki, 100% I'm getting very elegant chic lesbian vibes from. And I
100%.
don't know if it's just because she played Princess Diana in The Crown. But I also get the vibes from her. Like, this is the 80s with the AIDS crisis. I think she's in
Oh.
the hospital holding hands. You know what I mean? Like, she's
Oh,
out
yeah.
there supporting the queer community 100%.
That is the role that she's trying to get a little space from to play
Well,
this
she
role.
said, I'm bringing my elegant energy and my empathy with me.
Of
and
course.
I think that's a
but
good
she's
thing.
doing it in a different way, and I love that for her.
She should have
I
done a
love it.
completely different accent if she didn't want any references.
I
And
think it
Ty West
added
would
to
have let her
the,
do
like-
whatever accent she wanted, clearly.
I think it
True.
added to the like I'm a serious director
Yeah.
with an artistic vision vibe. You know what I mean? I know that's a stereotype, but
Sure.
it did bring that
It did.
energy.
It
Yeah.
absolutely gave that.
I mean, we have a lot of canonically gay things like you just expressed. That's canon. But we've got cruising gays in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery at Judy Garland's grave. Iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
The
that was
homos
so
are
iconic.
out there.
Moses, I think Leon's character, Leon is a queer character for sure.
Dad.
And like Hal, there's, you know, an innate queerness
yeah.
to the porn industry. Halsey's like, oh, what is it girl or guy girl? When asked
Right,
her,
that
They're
was
all
so
doing
funny.
girl on
Yep.
girl scenes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. So they're all doing girl on girl all the time. So, you know, at the very least, they're providing queer films to the world in some regard.
And I think the dad is a practicing homosexual. He just also has his grift going on.
Yeah.
But he's exactly like one of those big anti-gay grifters who are making a name for themselves but then are getting caught cruising in the bathroom or whatever. That's exactly his
100%.
steez.
100%. There's a lot of gay shit going on in here already. Thanks, Ty West. Reminding everyone that there's gay people in the 80s. A ton of them.
Who would have known? Who would have thought?
Who would have known?
It could have been, if it were to be gayer though, because that is the question. It could have been a gay scene that they were filming in the beginning when
Yes.
MaXXXine walks in. They'd have to play it a little different instead of being like, "Why is it so hard for him to come when he's fucking me?" But it could have easily they could have done something with that.
Totally. That would have been a really easy in.
Yeah.
Moses 78 Leon, he could have had a boyfriend.
Yeah. He was so good in this.
I don't really know
I'm
how
proud
that
of
would have
him.
added to the movie necessarily, but
But it would have
It
been,
would have been nice to see.
it would have been nice to see.
It-
Or he
it
could
could've
have
just
said
been
something.
like them together at like the video shop, you know?
Yeah, he could
Or,
have been
like, they
flirting
have
with
their
the
little
guy when
sleepover.
Maxine jumped in, you know, when Maxine
Mhm.
comes in and is like, I need you to look at this tape. And he, instead of watching Alligator, is like, or he's explaining to some guy something about Alligator, you know?
She falls asleep on him watching movie. He could have a little line that's like, "Not that I don't love my date nights with you, but I wish I had a real date to go on with my future boyfriend."
Incredible line.
Obviously, yeah, that's
He
exactly
would
the
say
dialogue that would have
exactly
appeared.
that. It would
I
be
think Ty West,
wonderful.
take notes, write it down.
Write it down,
Write
write
it
it
down,
down.
Ty West. That's a line
Yeah.
that you shouldn't forget.
Don't
Okay, that
forget it.
That feels pretty gay. Any other gay thoughts you'd like to share?
So many
Kevin
more gay
Bacon's
thoughts.
character fucked
Gay.
around a little in college.
Oh yeah. That's a chaos bisexual.
100%.
Giancarlo
Yes,
Esposito's character. Actually, him and Kevin Bacon, I think, could have had a wonderful romance if they weren't narratively at odds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hear me out. Hear me out. That hot guy who had the dogs and Giancarlo Esposito already
yeah.
a thing. Partners in crime and partners. Full stop.
Yeah.
And partners.
Kissing partners. They clean up the blood and then
The dogs finish lapping up the blood, and then they go home and they sit with their dogs on the couch and they put on
yes, that's what I
80s
was getting
TV
at.
show. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Just sweet domesticity. Okay, moving on to Matthew Lillard. Where would Matthew Lillard fit into this movie?
Okay, I would love to see him as the lawyer.
Ugh,
Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he'd be a
I think he
swarmy
has to wear
Kevin
the same
Bacon,
wig.
too.
Oh,
my
yeah,
God,
of
that wig.
course.
That wig.
Which did feel very 80s agent lawyer.
Yes.
So I was like, you know what? You nailed it.
Yeah, no, it was spot on. I would
I
just
think-
love him as Kevin Bacon's character because I feel like he would have a blast with that. I think Kevin
Yeah.
Bacon knocked it out of the park, but let's get Maddie a shot.
I think a young Matthew Lillard would have been a good Leon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
He would
I
have been
mean,
like a cute little gay best friend.
Leon was reminding me of Randy so much, you know, at the movie store. He worked at a movie store, knew all those facts right off the top of his head, was also talking about Jamie Lee Curtis, you know, that was like a time jump reference to Scream for me. I feel like those are good ones for him. I don't want him to be the dad. Well, he could have been the dad, but I loved the guy who played the dad. He was so camp.
No, he was good.
Yeah.
He was
He
perfect.
could have done Bobby Cannavale's role easily, but that's not where I would want him to be, I don't think.
Totally. Okay, dumb bitch. Who's the dumbest bitch in this flick?
All of the people that the dad duped into following him, maybe.
Yeah, the people in white.
The
Oh,
Satanists.
These bitches are like,
and
yeah,
the
I'm
Satanists.
Protesting the studios.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Probably those same people.
It is. It's that same guy. The guy with the cowboy boots
Yeah.
is in
He's
all of it.
like, we believe in God and we'll use our guns to do it, which I guess actually is a very consistent narrative. So I don't know why I'm saying
Yeah.
it like it's hypocritical because it's everywhere. But
They're dumb for not respecting horror as an art form and not respecting
that's
titties
so
as an art form.
true.
That's why they get the dumb bitch. That whole cult.
Mhm.
And their face paint with the cross on their face was like cool, but it wasn't that cool. And they could have had cuntier
It
outfits if they're
could have
gonna be in
been
a
done
cult.
better.
And it has been done better. So step aside.
And obviously, Lily Collins only got dismembered so that they could have her severed head falling on the stairs with the scream. But like, that was a weird, dumb move to cut her up and put her in suitcase. Like, what was that about? Really changing their MOs late in the game.
Right?
Oh,
Why wasn't she branded? Where was her brand?
yeah.
They said they did it so different for no real good reason.
Just for doing that one shot. That's the only reason.
Literally just for that. They said so much of this movie was like just because it would be iconic, just because
Yeah.
it would be fun.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I'll give it to the cult members. I think that makes sense. All right, it's time for our knives out of fives. What are people saying so far? Because I've seen some negative reviews online. Like I've seen a lot of reviews from like big publications being like, it's empty and lacks plot and blah 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 blah. I don't know. And I'm like, I didn't read those because I didn't want them to make me angrier than I already was after my first watch.
Yeah, I didn't really engage with any reviews, but the numbers alone are pretty positive, generally speaking.
good.
On IMDb, it has 6.8 out of 10. And on Rotten Tomatoes, it has 72% fresh from critics and 78% fresh from audiences. Again, fresh on Rotten Tomatoes just means like thumbs up versus thumbs down. It doesn't mean that people thought it was like
Yeah.
a C+ movie or like a 7 out of 10 or whatever. It just means that 7 out of 10 people said thumbs up. But I don't know. I mean, I wasn't surprised to see those numbers because I haven't also really been engaging in the like MaXXXine cultural discourse because I was trying not to be influenced too much yet.
Totally.
But yeah, I think it's kind of like we've been saying, you know what I mean? Like, is it a standalone film enough to warrant it? Do you need it to be a standalone film enough to be the end of a trilogy? Is it really the end of a trilogy if Pearl kind of exists outside of the overarching narrative?
Yeah.
Like the dad is
wanna
such
go
a hanging
first?
thread from the first one that like I like that they wrapped it up. I like that they looped back to that.
Yeah, that would have felt weird if they hadn't addressed that, I guess.
Yeah. I'll go first since I am still talking. I do think that I enjoyed it from the beginning. I was like entertained. I do love the Scream 3 parallels, obviously, of course.
That's just for you.
That's just for me, and it's like validating that Scream 3 is good. I think
So good they did it again.
so good they said we have to do one more pass. The ending I think could be punchier for sure. Like I said, I have semi medium beef with the way that the 1 month later played out after what I felt was like set up for something. And And then I don't know, it just kind of felt like they did like moment of silence, and then there was no energy.
There's no
They
energy.
cut to her doing the cook with the SAG card, it slays, and then they said, and downhill from there. Like,
Yeah.
it just, you're expecting something. They do give you the Betty Davis eyes in the credits,
Love
which,
that song.
is great because they open with the quote where they're like, you're not a star in Hollywood until you're a monster. So I guess maybe that is part of the payoff of the movie, is like, she killed somebody and so now she can be a star. But if that is the quote that they're gonna open with and then they're gonna hammer it home with Betty Davis eyes credits, I would love if they would be a little more explicit with engaging within that narrative. Because it felt like they kind of just like tagged it on and then said, like, you do the work of making the connections. But I don't know. I thought it was fun overall. I don't think it was like amazing, but I would give it probably like a 3.75. I'm going to go with, because it was like thumbs up for me for sure. I'd have some notes if I was sitting down with Ty West. But perfectly acceptable, enjoyable film.
I need to know what I gave Pearl and what I
Oh,
gave
yeah, I can tell you.
X.
You gave X 4.5. Hold on. And then
Pearl, you
maybe
gave
you can
3.5.
Okay,
what
yeah,
did I
that
give?
hold on.
You gave Pearl 4.7, and I
Okay,
gave it
keep going,
4.3.
Sydney. Sorry.
Okay, but that kind of again fits. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 because I liked it not as much as X, but way more than Pearl, and I wanted more gore. I loved like the
The gore they
aesthetic,
gave you was great, but it was
but I wanted
minimal.
more. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we got somebody being eaten by an alligator. Know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you're in Los Angeles in the 80s. Be creative. Um, but like Monica is experiencing what I experience every time
I'm trying to cover her butthole when my cat is, if you're just listening, my cat is trying to expose her butthole on the internet. I'm trying to protect her
Let
chastity.
her. This movie is about the porn
It's not
industry.
that kind of podcast.
She's trying to
It's
show
exactly
hole,
that
Monica.
kind of podcast.
You don't show hole yet. That's for
On this episode of all episodes,
on
although actually there
Patreon.
was not that much nudity. It could have been more.
See, could have
For a
been.
movie about porn stars.
You know.
But
Okay, so
yeah, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5. I had a really good time. I wasn't like expecting a lot of things. Know what I mean? Like, because it had hype, but it didn't have the like, this is one of the greatest movies you'll ever see. Know what I mean? And so I was just like,
it's
I
not like
walked
the
in.
long legs hype, yeah.
Yeah, I walked in
The scariest thing
pleasantly.
will change your life.
I walked in. I had a great time, and
And you
like,
walked out and you came immediately onto the podcast.
and I'll probably rewatch this. Where like Pearl, I don't ever need to rewatch Pearl ever again.
Yeah, see, I like Pearl better than I like this movie, and I think it's again a theater girl movie, and I said that on our Pearl episode, but this isn't about Pearl. I feel like I've already given all of my criticisms from the get-go. I gave X a 5 out of 5 knives, and that is how I feel still. I feel like that first movie was so much fun, so iconic. I loved how like sorry to sound like an ancient person, but like how racy it was, like adding the porn setting and all of that. I loved it. I thought it was awesome and really really cool and an incredible ensemble cast. I love that Pearl exists. I feel like it is a freaky theater girl dream, Wizard of Oz meets horror. That's amazing. I'm so glad that that exists too. It's didn't make me feel the same way. I definitely liked it better revisiting it. This movie, I mean, I know I've said I've changed my tune on it a lot, but I do still think it says a lot that as like such a diehard fan of this movie that it let me down so hard the first time. Like I, unlike Sydney, had really high expectations for this movie because I loved X so much. Like I gush about X. I bring it up when people ask me what some of my favorite horror movies are. And I always recommend it to people too. So it was hard in that way, but then like, looking like I've said earlier in the episode, seeing how it's referential to giallos more and it's a noir and all of that, and like thinking about the pacing of noir movies and that sort of thing, that made it makes a little bit more sense to me. That said, I still feel like there was a lot of like jazz and not a lot of context. There was a lot of like vibes, which is like a big thing in the 80s, setting the vibe, setting the tone. I get it. And he did an incredible job of that, as Ty always does. But like, I wanted more like hard facts, hard content. You know what I mean? Like, there was just a lot of zhuzhing and not a lot of like meat for me in this movie. And it was just a little chaotic with like so many different things. But you did change my mind a little bit about the Night Stalker aspect, Sydney, bringing up the Satanism innate with him that I just didn't know about. So that does make a lot more sense. So I don't think this is quite a 4 for me. I think it's like a 3.6 maybe. But I mean, still a good movie. It's still a good movie for sure. It's not a failure by any means. It's just, I feel like could have used a second round of edits, a 15,000 round of edits, you know? And given it the cunty ending we always deserve. After the Pearl ending,
Yeah.
this ending, come on. Also, Spooky's big news before we introduce next week's movie. 2/3 of Spooky Tuesday will be at Midsummer Scream this weekend in Long Beach, LBC, baby. So if you're gonna be at Midsummer Scream and you want to say hey, we will be there in a myriad of interesting, horrifying costumes. You might not even recognize us. But yeah, we'd love to meet you out there at our very first horror con. Come hold our hands. It's our first time.
We're nervous.
We're nervous. Luckily, we've got the girls from Spooky Chicks and Horror Flicks showing us the ropes, and of course, Homies of Horror. We're really excited to hang out with them and meet other amazing horror podcast people that are going to be there, and maybe Elvira. And hopefully Tony Todd. Those are my top 2, but there's a huge list of people that
I
we're
don't know.
trying to see.
The voice actors from Monster High are going to be there, and I'm sorry, but I love that show.
Oh my god. Okay, well, I need to binge watch it. Also, Roger Jackson's going to be there, the voice of Ghostface. Like,
There's so many good people. I'm so excited.
It's going to be so fun. We're so stoked. So I would love to see you guys there. So hit us up, slide into our DMs. We can meet up. And we're going to have sexy, sexy, sexy Spooky Tuesday stickers with us.
Whoa, do you want a sticker?
Look at that.
It's very spooky sexy.
Come find us and we will give you a sticker.
Class.
But we've got exciting things coming up next week that are completely different, Chelsea.
If you didn't already guess, which you should have, or you're a fake fan, if you couldn't tell from the mime and the Lord's Prayer, it's really obvious what we're doing
so
next.
Obvious.
If you need one more clue, I'll tell you that it's a 5th Tuesday. So we're doing a non-horror movie. It's a bonus. It's a gimme. And if you haven't got it from there, you're never going to. Clearly, you don't know what you're talking about. But it is brutal. You should have some idea, actually, because we did ask you guys to vote on what we should do. So you should know it's probably one of two options. Movies. And I don't think they recite the Lord's Prayer in Dirty Dancing. So maybe you can guess. Maybe you already know.
I don't think there's any mimes in Dirty Dancing.
Actually, there could be.
Honestly, there could be.
There could be. But it is Kirsten Dunst's classic, Bring It On. We're throwing it back. It is an iconic film. It is a wonderful, beautiful cheerleader movie. It has Eliza Dushku and Gabrielle Union as well.
Eliza Dushku, my one
it is just incredible, iconic. And I don't know, people are like, that takes place during the school year. I don't care. It's a summer movie. It's a summer classic. It's watch at your sleepover with your friends kind of film. And so I'm really excited. I'm excited to do it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I'm hype.
super fucking stoked for this. Ugh. Well, before we go, just another reminder that there's sexy, sexy, sexy things happening on our Patreon. Wow.
Yay!
We're becoming best friends. There's new players entering the chat all the time. We're surprised. We're making new friends. We're talking to listeners we've never spoke to before. So it's very exciting. Please join us and join our cute little Spooky Crew friend group. We got trailer reviews up. We've got exclusive content of us being just ourselves, which is, as you remember, 3 beautiful idiots. More dumb content from us. Only if you join Patreon.
Patreon.
Oh yeah, I gotta say it like I know you did last summer. But yeah, check it out. We're patreon.com/spooky_Tuesday. And you know, we're always looking for compliments. Why not give us a 5-star review? Say, wow, you're a star. All 3 of you. 5 stars. There you go. You're not just 1 star, you're 5 stars. Wow. I'm really writing incredible one-liners for you here. Just copy paste into Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. And why not follow us on social media? We're at spooky_Tuesday on pretty much everything, specifically YouTube, where you will see us dressed up as Maxine, and Maxine. To Maxine.
Whoa,
XXX, just like Maxine. I am Maxine from X, and our other 2 ladies are different versions of Cunty Maxine from Maxine. So a lot of exciting things happening. There's some light prop work happening. It's great. And you can only see it on our YouTube channel. And why not also follow us on Tumblr or Facebook at Spooky Tuesday Pod, because those have different names. And a reminder that we have a new sexy website, www.spookytuesdaypod.com. Your one-stop shop for everything Spooky Tuesday. Did I hit everything? I think I
Poll
did.
question?
Yay! Poll. Oh,
A
fucking
poll
God.
question. Monica's
I don't wanna
number
do
one.
it.
Poll
I'm done with
question.
the poll question.
Which was your favorite movie in the franchise?
Oh, easy.
Easy.
Perfect. Done. It's X. For me. But speak for yourself on Spotify.
You'll vote and you'll let us know.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what people think. Maybe Pearl will win and Sydney will be mad.
Who knows?
knows?
Maybe someone out there's a really big Maxine stan. I mean, maybe they're here for MaXXXine.
I know for a fact that some of our listeners ride hard for Maxine, so we'll see. But yeah, at the end of the day, I have to say thank you for listening, and I'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye, spookies.
Drop it! Buster. What were you gonna do, huh?
Nothing. I was just playing around.
Well, we're playing now.
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Haidt, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamara Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Great18. That's GR818_. And our podcast art is by Ryan Brom, who you can follow on Instagram at Ryan Brom Art. That's RyanBrommArt. Learn more about Spooky Tuesday at spookytuesdaypod.com and subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/spooky_Tuesday.